The Daytona National Reptile Breeders Expo was the very first national level show that Courtney and I had went to, and this last weekend was the most recent 2025 Daytona NRBE. So for this week's video, we're going to be going over our experience at the 2025 National Reptile Breeder Expo, and we're going to be talking about what we think was the best aspects of the entire show. My name's Steven with Leviathan, and let's get to it. Originally, it was just going to be me who was going to head down to Daytona, and this was due to the weekend before Daytona was the Southeast Reptile Expo, and during that weekend, Courtney's mom had already watched our daughter for us. So we didn't want to ask her to watch her 2 weekends in a row because we felt like that would be a little bit overstaying our welcome. So I had planned to head down to Daytona on Friday, and I took the day off. And while I was going down to Daytona, Courtney ended up calling me because she was working with Cameron, our employee, on cleaning the snakes that day. And while this was going on, they were talking about the recent Ultrasun clutch that we had just hatched out. And in that clutch, check out last week's video in case you haven't seen it yet, but we had hit 2 Ultrasuns, and in it, we had initially thought that both of them were females, and Cameron had talked to Courtney asking her if she had sexed them recently, because it's not uncommon for when you very first get a baby out of the egg that when you sex them, you don't get the sex right, so you need to sex them multiple different times throughout the subsequent weeks in order to make sure that you sex them appropriately. But with this, Courtney went over and she resexed the animals, and it turns out that the Super OD Ultrasun was actually a male, and I was so freaking excited when they called me and told me about this, and I was driving down to Daytona. So with this event happening, we were both so stoked, and when Courtney called her mom to tell her about it, her mom had asked where I was, and Courtney said that I was already on my way down to Daytona, and her mom offered to watch Ellie for us, so this meant that Courtney was able to come down, but she didn't end up getting down to Daytona until about 11 o'clock at night, maybe closer to midnight. So with all of this, I am so freaking excited, and I am calling all of our friends to let them know. So I end up getting down to Daytona at about 1-ish o'clock, and I had some animals that Brock had sent to us because we had vended Southeast Reptile Expo the weekend before, and we didn't have very much to put on our table. So I brought Brock's animals back to him, and I was able to put one animal of ours on the table, and that was the female Orange Dream Ultrasun that we had hit. So we were so freaking ecstatic. It didn't even matter what happened this weekend because 1, we only had 1 animal to sell, and 2, we were really just going down there to have fun and hang out, but we were already having a great show. So we end up hanging out with Brock and Winston, and we go around and look at everybody's stuff on Friday, which was a really, really good time because when it comes to Daytona, on Friday they have VIP and they have vendors set up, but it's not nearly as busy as the regular show during the weekend. So we were able to catch up with a ton of our friends like Brett and John of Jersey Guys, of Barry Swope of Elusive Propagations, Jason of Kittinger Reptiles, and tons of other people. And while we're at the show, we identified some poison dart frogs that we were really interested in picking up because we just recently got into poison dart frogs and started making bioactives for them. So we identified them, but the vendor wasn't there, so we weren't able to buy them on Friday. And we ended up going out to eat Friday night, and this is where the picture of Brett getting shoved into the trunk and Chad end up holding a knife because we had a hostage came from. That was posted on Facebook. But anyways, it was a great time. It was a super, super fun day. And I think that the best aspect of the Daytona National Reptile Breeder Expo is actually all of the socializing and networking that you get to do after the show with all of the different vendors and all of the people that are there as guests. We end up hanging out at the hotel bar for quite a bit, and it was really, really fun, and we didn't tell a bunch of people, or at least I tried not to tell a bunch of people that Courtney was coming, but even so, every single time that we would see somebody, they would always ask me, where's Courtney? And even though Courtney didn't want me to tell anybody, I crumbled under the pressure, and as soon as they would ask me, I'd be like, I can't lie to you, Courtney's coming later on today, but you can't tell her that I told you. So when Courtney did end up getting there that night, there was a couple people who were surprised, but most people immediately said that, oh yeah, Steven spilled the beans and he couldn't keep a secret to save his life. So Courtney and I were not actually staying at the Hilton like we normally do because we didn't actually book our hotel room till way past the point when they'd already closed the group rate for the Hilton. So we ended up staying at a hotel that was maybe a block or two away, so it was within walking distance, but it wasn't nearly as nice as the Hilton that we normally stay at. That said, it was 100% perfectly doable, and we likely would stay there again, but it really depends on what is the group rate for the Hilton and what are the other rates for hotels in the surrounding area. So with this, Saturday rolls around and both Courtney and I head to the show, and while we're there, we are hanging out with all of our friends, we're seeing different animals, and we are able to actually buy those poison dart frogs that we were super freaking excited about. We were specifically looking for the Costa Rican black and greens, and the reason why we wanted them is because while we were in Costa Rica with Bob and Mary, this was the species that we found on one of our very first herping trips that Courtney and I had ever gone to. So anyways, there weren't any Costa Rican black and greens at the show that we were able to find, but we did find some absolutely beautiful Dendrobatus tinctorius azorus, and these are these absolutely stunning iridescent blue poison dart frogs that I really like. And we had gotten one of them at the Southeast Reptile Expo the weekend before. So we got two more and we were able to finish up that specific bioactive, and I am so freaking excited with how it's turned out, and I absolutely love just how stunning these animals are, and they're fairly easy to care for because you just put in some flightless fruit flies and make sure that the entire enclosure is very humid and misted. Back to the show. There wasn't any ball pythons that we ended up picking up at Daytona, but there was some amazing sales that were going on. Jeremy Bod had a tornado female, and I'm pretty sure it was the first time I've ever seen a tornado in person, but Brett and John of Jersey Guys Balls ended up buying that tornado female from Jeremy Bod during the show, and that was an amazing purchase. I am super freaking jealous of them, and I can't wait to see what they do and what everybody does in the tornado project. In addition to that, there was lots of really good sales made from several different vendors that we're friends with, and overall it seemed that the Daytona National Reptile Breeder Expo was an incredible show for just about everybody who was vending, at least ball pythons that we talked to. Now, going away from a little bit about the show itself, I was a little teeny tiny bit worried that was going to be a fairly slow Daytona because the Southeast Reptile Expo was the weekend before. And while we were hanging out on Friday, it did seem to be a significant decrease in the amount of vendors and guests hanging out at the Hilton Bar in preparation for that weekend. But when the show actually opened up on Saturday, there was a massive line in order to get in, and overall it seemed like it was a very busy time, and overall it was a fantastic show.
They didn't have an overbite or an underbite, you know, all those things that make up the species standard. We try to implement that with geckos. So at this show, we are starting off with crested geckos and gargoyle geckos. Eventually we want to do, you know, leopard geckos, African fat-tailed geckos, Leachianus geckos, and more. But we look at things, we don't look just at color and pattern, we look at the overall structure of the animal, obviously the health. We want to make sure that the animals are nice and muscular, they have a good build. We don't just care about color and pattern. Of course, we're breeders, we love to breed for high color and high pattern, but it is also important to breed for the pet trait, so we want to make sure we breed happy and healthy animals. So this is what we do. Take a look around. We have exceptional animals that have been entered to the competition, and we'll be doing these from now on to for the Daytonas to come. Okay, so the scoring system, it's basically a 100-point system, and there's a gecko could score 10 points in 10 different categories. So I'll give you an example. Like crested geckos, you could score 1 to 10 points on crest, on body structure, on facial features, on color, on pattern, on handleability, and a couple other factors. So the most a gecko can score is 100, and depending on the animal, some really high-end examples will score in the 90s. Really high-end animals will also score in the 80s. But we're trying to keep breeders to shoot for like that 90 to 80 range, because 100 is a hard score to hit. You know, I always say no gecko is perfect, but that's what we're aiming for. So that's the scoring system that we do.
We hope you guys enjoyed the video, and we can't wait to go back to Daytona next year. And if you're going, definitely let us know, because we'd love to meet up and get a drink at the bar next year in August. My name's Steven with Leviathan, and we will see you next week.